What do you say we hit the mailbag at this point?
Yeah, let's hit it.
All right, so we are heading on over to our Discord room. If you are in the Twitch chat, feel free to drop a question for us as well too. We'll do our best to answer them. Let's start out with Joe Donuts over in our Discord room. He says, "How do you both think that this year will be remembered for gaming? Will it be remembered at all? I feel like the big years are memorable because there are so many good games, like 1998, or a few hugely important games, 96 to 2001. I consider 2019 a great year for games, even if not everyone agreed. But 2020 has been pretty standard and unexciting. All the best games seem to come out with a lot of caveats outside of Hades."
Yeah, when I think of this year and I think of new, I do think of Demon Souls for PS5 and I think of Hades, and that's about it. And I'm sure there's more that I've forgotten about from earlier in the year, but I think my answer to this is pretty simple. COVID really changed a lot of the dynamics of how we game to this year. And
Yes.
I think for me and a lot of other folks, we kind of took a step back and did an analysis on our backlogs
Mm-hmm.
and what games we were playing. We tried out new things that were calming to cope with the state of the world. And overall, I think it was a pretty interesting year for gaming, but certainly not, not exciting. Like you say, Joe, it's a pretty unexciting year because of, geez, the pandemic. It really
Yeah.
shaped the way that we chose to sit down with games.
I feel like I didn't spend nearly as much time with my backlog as I had originally planned to. With the pandemic, it was in a way exciting to hear that not that many games that I was expecting to come out were going to. But then, like, I found like all these indie games on Game Pass and ended up playing those instead, and it really filled up a lot of my time. I came into 2020 with a goal of beating 12 games, and by like March, I had abandoned that because I just thought it was impossible. I chose Octopath Traveler as my first game to play of
Yeah.
2020, and like I put a lot of time into it, but I was just like felt like I was getting nowhere. And then Doom Eternal was the first game that I think came out this year that I had dove into, and I've gone on record as saying that I struggled with that game in more than one way. I struggled with the difficulty. I struggled with the stress. That game came out when we were going into quarantine, and my mind was not in a good place. And Doom Eternal did not help that. So, I've kind of been around the block with that game in more than different, multiple mindsets. But then you have a game like Spiritfarer, which caught me completely off guard and ended up being a tremendous experience. So that's a game that I might not have played otherwise, you know. Um, but I would say that I think overall, if you were looking for 2020 to be a blockbuster year for gaming, yeah, I don't think it is. I gotta say, Will, that lowering of the desk is much less smooth than it is normally.
Yeah, I'm not at my electronic one. Excuse
Uh,
me.
yeah. Yeah. 2020 just ended up being kind of just a weird year. I mean, just think about the console launches and how uneventful they were. How little we knew about the PS5 until, October.
Yeah, yeah. And then also the rest of the year, or the beginning rather, I felt like I was slogging my way through Final Fantasy Remake,
Yeah.
which just seemed to take an eternity. So
Right.
overall, man, it's just a really strange year.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm hopeful that 2021 will be overall better. I mean, not just for society in general, but for gaming. you know.
Yeah.
But that remains to be seen. And don't forget too, we do have the Game Awards coming up soon. I'm not sure what the date is, but it's within the next couple weeks. And that is going to be kind of filling a void that E3 couldn't fill this year. You're gonna get trailers. You're gonna get some hype. It's going to be different because there's no crowd. But I think that Jeff Keighley is definitely trying to make it a newsworthy event more than just for what the awards are.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's going to be interesting. And I think to answer that point too about next year, I think we do
Mm-hmm.
have a lot to look forward to. At least we have to hope so. Because you're right, there isn't really a lot, that's concrete that we could say, okay, God of War's next year,
Right, right.
and all these other big titles. We just have to say, okay, let's just hope the pandemic kind of simmers down, and we can get back to a state of normalcy with how these games are getting released.
Exactly. Next question comes from Scooby Diesel. Love that name. I think
It is
2020.
fun.
I think 2020 will be remembered for obviously staying at home and boosting sales and making new gamers, specifically Nintendo with Animal Crossing, but also the fact that we saw stuff like Stadia, Luna, xCloud, along with PS5 and Series X. Game wise, I'm not as sure. It depends also if Cyberpunk wins huge for fans or not. But stuff like VR making it biggish and also making 2020 more impactful. IMO plus stuff like Final Fantasy Remake.
Mm,
So I mean that raises some good points. This kind of did seem like the year for innovation with cloud gaming. I have not tried Stadia or Luna, which Luna is Amazon's offering, but I have dabbled with XCloud. It's not for me, but the technology is super impressive, and I do think that I think that a day is going to come where Xbox is going to be 100% cloud based.
sure, I could see that.
You
I
know,
mean, honestly, I feel like I could see it with almost all consoles.
yeah,
Eventually, at least, it's probably going to be a staggered approach. I don't think it's obviously not going to be all at the same time, but
hmm
I mean, it's pretty clear that that's the direction that we're heading in. And I almost feel like PS5 is like, you know what, we're going to make this disc version look pregnant just to piss everybody off, so they get so they understand that this is the direction that we're moving in.
yeah, yeah. Let's keep it from looking all sleek and stuff, right? Yeah,
Right?
I mean, physical games, like the days are numbered. Full stop.
They really are.
And that breaks my heart as a collector. With one of two walls behind me filled, with games, but
Hmm.
um, I get it. And I won't lie, like there is a convenience factor that I'm kind of feeling the crunch on with a game like Cyberpunk, because there's going to be days where I'm going to want to play it on my Xbox One versus my Series X. And I having the physical copy isn't a huge big deal, but it's going to be like an extra step. I'm going to have to remember, okay, I got to take the disc out of the Series X and bring it over to the One X.
Yeah, it's interesting when Scooby, you say there, but stuff like VR making it big-ish.
Mm.
That is interesting because I had the Oculus Quest, and now the Oculus Quest 2 is out, and it seems to be making it pretty big.
hmm
No
hmm
pun intended. But I feel like VR might make a pretty serious move in terms of making a sort of comeback, if you will.
Mm.
End of this year, moving into next, I think that we're going to see it finally take off the way that it should,
Right.
because there's a lot of potential there. With my short time with the Quest and my time with the Rift with Tom, there's absolutely potential.
Yeah. And Pencilburn says, also we got Half-Life 3 in 2020, kinda. And I'm, Half-Life Alex is a game that I wanted to play so badly, but the barrier for entry to getting into that VR world is just not something that was within my means. And that's, I think, going to be the ultimate key with VR, is making it affordable, making it a destination that's worth buying into, and giving people games that they want. Half-Life is a franchise that people want, but just having it being so limited to VR and exclusively VR, I think that it blocked a lot of people from playing it.
Squandering, to put it frankly.
Yeah.
Here's the thing with VR, right?
Mm.
Short and sweet version. It's either the Quest 2 for affordability and playability, or it's the complete opposite of the spectrum, which is, $3,000 PC,
Mm.
Oculus Rift all decked out. Then you're experiencing what I call real VR.
Mm.
But, are you willing to pay like 4Gs to make that happen? Probably
No,
not.
I have a mortgage.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like a nice little extra payment on your mortgage, right? It's like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
let me just
Dude,
pay a quick 4,000 off.
no, legit, that's like 3 months of my mortgage.